Good evening, everyone. Once again, we're so delighted that you would come here to our Newark Tech World, where we have 30,000 square feet, where we're doing Cisco certification training, where we're trying to make an impact in our community so that those who have been left behind because of some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, along with me, 10 mistakes in one's life, that they're now getting an opportunity to become Cisco's IT specialists. Where after they go through the 4 to 8 week training, they can be IT specialists where they can start out making $60,000 to $80,000 a year. We're so happy to have some of the students here with us tonight. All students that are in the class, would you just stand? I just want to see our students that are here tonight. Yeah, just stand. And as we talk about the National Action Network and Reverend Al Sharpton and his leadership, there's not much talk about what we do here. Normally when you hear Reverend Sharpton's name, it's always regarding someone who has just been shot or killed, their son or their daughter. But we're not only standing on the forefront for that, but here we are leading along with everything else that we do in technology, making sure that every individual have an opportunity to have a fair chance in life. One of the things that we're working on currently also is the expungement. I'm currently working on the expungement representing the National Action Network, where 1.6 million will be able to have a job. Their record would be able to be expunged. So when they're going looking for a job, that after 1 or 2 weeks, they get a call in the office and they have to let them go because something was on their record. We also partner with PSEG. I see Melvin here and Rick Thigpen, and we're just so excited about all that we're doing here at the Newark Tech World. I am so delighted today to be able to now bring to the community something that is of great importance, and that is dealing with this energy that is going to affect us all, those of us that are low income and small businesses. It is so vitally important that we would have you come here today so that we could talk about these issues that you need to be aware of. And if you're not aware of it, you just will see an increase in one's bill and you'll wonder where that came from. And so I'm so delighted that we have all of these great guests that are going to be talking about their expertise and what it means to you to be a part of this so that you can be aware. Your mother, your father, your cousin, your uncle, your church member can be educated on how important this rising of this energy crisis in New Jersey will impact this community. And so we're here today. Rachel Nordlinker and Paul and Mike and others have come together, and we're here with the I'm trying to get the right word. We're with those that care about you, that they would bring this to your attention so that you can be a part of it. And so I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to have, he says he's the third, but he would like to be called Dane Davies, the third. And he is the counsel for the Consumer Energy Alliance. He's an independent organization advocating for all energy consumers across the nation. And here he has come across the nation. He's in Newark today to bring to your attention and to bring to your awareness what's at stake as this energy crisis arising and how it's going to impact you. And so I'm going to move right out of the way and once again ask that Dane Davies III would come and give us more concerning this rising energy costs in the state of New Jersey. Let's give him a hand as he comes.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to make you guys 2 promises today. The first is that I won't ramble on too much about energy, because I've been told I do that too much sometimes, and everyone's like, come on, Dane, no one cares about it as much as you do. But I assure you will today. And the second promise is it'll be interesting. So, good evening. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. This is my first time in Newark since about 2006, 2007, when I was a student at Temple University. And I had a really good friend from Irvington. We used to frequent the Newark area to get White Castle, believe it or not. And let me tell you, we frequented it. Nevertheless, it's a wonderful city, great people with tremendous opportunity. One example of that is through the Newark Tech World program that Reverend Sharpton and Pastor Bartley are spearheading, along with other notable leaders, providing tangible opportunity to bridge the IT gap with the inner city, helping our community step confidently into the future. Thank you for that. So I'm here today to talk about energy. I know some of you may use this time to catch up on your Facebook timeline or catch up with the news, but if you do, please just let me know what you see afterwards. If you look around us, there's energy, in different shapes and forms. Clothing is a byproduct of energy. Your phone is energy. The lights, the AC, energy. The camera is energy. But perhaps, we're here to talk about the more, I would say, maybe relevant aspect of energy, which is the lights, our light bills, electricity bills. So I'm going to throw out a few numbers today. Can assure you they're credible government numbers. Didn't make them up, unless Mike did. Then we talk to Mike about that later. So across the nation, more and more families are living paycheck to paycheck with little to no savings. So a recent survey from Bankrate revealed that only 39% of Americans had $1,000 saved in their bank account for a financial emergency or just for a rainy day. CNBC recently reported that 69% of Americans had less than $1,000 in their bank account for savings, and 34% had no savings at all. So this is why energy is important. Because more and more every day, families are struggling to meet these bills. So let's talk about New Jersey for a minute. In New Jersey, at about 9% of the population is at or below the poverty line. The people that are at this point pay about 35 or a third of their income in electricity and energy costs, whereas everyone else pays there about 8 to 10%. So think about the impact that has on our inner city communities, on small businesses. It's a huge impact. According to a survey by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, nearly 1/3 of American households struggle to pay their energy bills. The survey also found that roughly 1 in 3 households reported reducing or foregoing basic necessities like food and medicine to pay an energy bill. If you ask me, that's a major deal. When you get to a point where you're foregoing medicine and food, it's a bigger impact than what people believe. So New Jersey, one of the biggest challenges that New Jersey faces is its cost of living, all right? And so on average, each New Jersey resident spent $3,124 to meet their energy needs back in 2016, which is more than New York, Pennsylvania, or Maryland. In the same year, New Jersey also ranked 11th nationwide for energy expenditures, which totaled more than $28 billion. Nevertheless, the future of New Jersey's energy infrastructure and security is centered around the correct policies. So Governor Murphy proposed the Energy Master Plan and other policies that will have an effect on the inner cities, on small businesses and communities. The governor's goal of 100% renewable energy or clean energy by 2050 is ambitious and expensive. So why so? Here's why. Renewable energy production is more expensive than conventional sources and requires added investment in storage and transmission. I'll get into that a little further. Also, based on national estimates, it would cost $5.7 trillion to convert U.S. electric generation to all renewables. New Jersey's share of that will be nearly $115 billion. Break it down a little bit more. That works out to be about $12,900 per person in New Jersey. So when we talk about a vast deployment of renewable sources, two things come to mind: reliability and affordability. So let's look at the affordability sector first. Today there's a cry for more clean and renewable resources. We see it all over the news. Clean energy, clean deals. And I oblige to that. We should care about the environment and move towards a cleaner future. However, there are a few things to consider. Like I said a while ago, renewable sources tend to be more expensive to install and deploy, potentially raising rates through grid modifications. So, for instance, a colleague of mine right now is amidst a grid modification effort in Georgia, where for the first time in, I don't want to call out a number, but a number of years, they're going through a grid mod effort which will raise the prices of electricity for consumers in Georgia exponentially. Also, renewable sources demand larger storage and transmission capabilities, which call for a hike in rates. So here's really what it is. The grid as it is not equipped to take on all of these new sources. Therefore, there has to be adaptability. There has to be new technology that's introduced and attached to the grid, right? So battery, believe it or not, battery technology today is not where it should be or where it could be to carry these mass amount of storage to be able to sustain the populations. However, maybe one day we will get there. Also, current renewable incentives, as they stand, are significant and may create a cost shift onto consumers that don't directly benefit from them. And when we talk about reliability, let's talk about keeping the lights on. The inherent capabilities of renewables are intermittent. The sun isn't shining every day. The wind isn't blowing every day. Well, some people say, well, technology is beyond that now. It can capture it. Well, let's think about the polar vortex that happened last winter. I went to Syracuse for school, and it's a very cold place, and they do not give snow days or cold days. Well, they did last year for the first time in 34 years. A report out of Minnesota said that at that point, at the tip of the vortex, there was little to no generation from solar or renewable resources. In fact, these states were relying on the fossil fuels and the natural gas resources to keep the lights on and to keep people warm in their homes. So, one thing I want to say is that thanks to increased natural gas production across the U.S., New Jersey's families and businesses saved more than $21.2 billion between 2006 and 2016. Something to realize with that is that when you're building out infrastructure on both ends, in both renewable and fossil fuels, it creates jobs for the community as well. Tons of jobs. It can be solar installations. It can be people working on natural gas pipelines, which is a very clean and efficient fuel source. And to think also that in all of this, sometimes we're led to believe that it's one or the other. Well, things suggest that a diversified mix on the grid is what will give us the reliable and affordable energy that we need. So this not only brings job to the renewable industry, but also to the fossil fuels for infrastructure as well and for maintenance. And I know my time's running down low. My man here has been cutting me in too. But thank you again, and I look forward to talking to you guys later. Thank you.
I want to do this real quickly as we're about to go into our second speaker for tonight. maybe some of you might be hungry. We're going to cut the air down. He raised his hand. And what I want to do real quickly, because we're going to go right, we're going to keep moving. So if we can get a little something to eat real fast, and we're going to run right through it. All right? Anyone care for something to eat? All right? And that way we're going to put another row of chairs down here because others are coming. And so if anyone care for anything, you can go right up there, help yourself real fast. He is the executive director of CHAD Foundation. This is educational policy. He deals with advocacy. His organization, in fact, is right here in the city of Newark. In fact, this is the oldest organization here in the city of Newark. He's an educator, and one of the things that he's most important about what he does is he's trying to uphold the education and the improvement of those students and the outcome of all of the residents that are here in the city of Newark. And he's basically focused on those that are disadvantaged, those that are not getting the same opportunity as others. And so he is an advocate for this, and he's here tonight. And I want you to put your hands together as we present to you Eric Stevenson, the Executive Director of CHAD Foundation, right here in the city of Newark.
Thank you, Pastor Bartley. I appreciate that. Thank you all to this distinguished panel that is gathered here this evening, a panel of leaders and community advocates who understand the importance of this issue. To you, the community, who felt it important to come out this evening to learn about, to share about this important issue affecting our community. Again, Pastor, thank you for having me to share just a couple of words as one of the nonprofit partners in this community. As many of you may know, CHAD was founded right here in the city of Newark in 1969 by African American citizens who saw inequities and oppression and a failure of our public education system to educate our kids to the levels of our aspirations. And so CHAD went on in 1970 to run 2 community-based independent schools over a span of 35 years in this community. And so as we now have emerged the work, giving out scholarships to young people in the community, elevating the voice of our young people in the research that we do to increase awareness around policy issues affecting education, principally in Newark, but throughout New Jersey. It's important that we continue to elevate our knowledge around issues that affect the entire community. And obviously, energy is one that does that. You know, in the aftermath of community uprising in the late 1960s, CHAD is birthed. And it's birthed because it's important to recognize that the status quo is never acceptable in our community, and that we have to continue to increase our knowledge and our awareness of these things that impact us. And so we have demonstrated over the last 50 years that our responsibility is to show that the community can educate itself, that the community can take the lead in assuming roles to ensure that the community is not expensed, but the community uses its assets to leverage itself for the benefit of the whole. And so it's important, and I say this as an advocate of good education policy, that I understand the role that energy plays in education. And I'm not talking about our large schools that, you know, obviously don't have the same challenges. I'm talking about many of our early childhood centers, who many of whom are run by our neighbors in the community, and this issue will directly impact them. And so it's important that we are aware of rising energy costs and how it may affect their ability to make the proper investments that they need to make with respect to ensuring that our young people and our children, particularly those most vulnerable, those from birth to 3, have the resources that they need in order to get a good start. If energy is at issue, then investments in education are at risk. And it's important that we understand that framing, because Chad, in its infancy, 50 years ago, operating in the community on Clinton Avenue in 3 row houses, evolving through the 80s, buying school property from the Archdiocese of Newark, where obviously energy was an issue then, remains an issue now. We as a much larger organization still are very aware of the expense that rising energy costs give us pause about the investments that we make. So you have to understand that those community-based organizations, community-based centers who may be impacted by rising energy costs, how it can directly affect them in the delivery of their services to our family, and then the families affected by those costs and the decisions that they have to make with respect to their children, and being able to afford to pay for early child care, to be able to pay for resources for their children. So it's a very critical issue in our community that we cannot just simply pass over, but we have to engage and engage fully. You know, energy is expensive. Brother Davies talked about all of the potential renewable energies and energy sources, and I must humbly admit I don't know much about all of them. I've obviously, like many of you, I've heard about a lot of them, but I do know about my gas bill. I know about my PSEG bill. Ms. Thigpen. And I want to make sure, like many of you, that it remains manageable. And I can say this right, Pastor, prayerfully, it gets lower. But I certainly don't want it to go up. And I certainly don't want it to go up without the community having a discussion about rising energy costs and how it may affect us directly. You may not know this, and I'll throw this fact out here that I was able to research, and it goes in concert with what Mr. Davies said. New Jersey, in fact, has the 11th highest energy costs in the nation. In the nation. And as a community, we have to be conscious of the costs in that context every month when we write those bills. We don't want to get any higher than 11. We want to go down, 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 and hope that everybody's costs go down, down, down. We have to also know, because we live it every day, that winter is hard in New Jersey. And as we have begun to examine our own energy costs in relationship to the investments that we make, it's important that, again, we have that frame for small community-based organizations. Even Nan-Tech World, which is not by any stretch compared to some of our smaller organizations that are running small daycare centers and small other after-school programs and other things that are educationally based. But imagine if costs went up in this building and how that may affect the community's ability to access this very needed resource right here in our community. And so this issue is one that is real, it is relevant, and it needs our persistent attention now. And lastly, I will share with you, because there are those who are assembled here who know much more about this issue than I, that the people of Newark, particularly those who are low income or maybe living at or below the poverty line, need the assurance that their energy is, one, both clean, both effective, delivered efficiently, but more importantly, is cost effective and does not burden them, because you should not be burdened when you have to heat your home. You should not be burdened to have to compromise and challenge yourself on decisions that you have to make with respect to the bills that you have to pay and the decisions that you have to make with respect to sending your children to school and buying what they need when you've got energy costs that are skyrocketed. And so we've got to make sure that we stand together as a community, that we stand together in solidarity, that we stand together in leadership, that we stand together and continue to give voice to this issue. Thank you.
Before you go, can you give us those three again? I thought that was very helpful. What was those three, the last 3 points you pointed out?
Which points was that?
The last three, you said it was.
Oh. That we want our energy to be clean.
Clean, that's.
We want our energy to be efficiently delivered. And we want our. Oh, we want the cost to be effective.
So that's CEC.
Clean,
Right.
efficient,
And
cost effective.
That's CEC. Right on. So y'all got that? CEC.
That's right. Okay.
That's right.
Thank you, Pastor.
I like that. CEC. I'm so honored to have Rick with us tonight. His role that he plays is a phenomenal role. He's responsible for the federal and the state and local government affairs, corporate citizenship and culture, and PSEG. And he's also the chairman of PSEG Foundation. So for all of you that are here tonight, small businesses, nonprofit, that you're looking for grants and all those things, Rick is here. If you can't get Rick, stand up, Mel. His right hand is right there. Calvin. And so we're grateful that he's here tonight. And so we would make way for him. Put your hands together for Rick Thigpen.
Thank you. I don't know what I'd do without Pastor Bartley. So good evening, everybody. Good evening, Pastor Jefferson. So he forgot to mention I am also the former district director for Congressman Donald Payne Sr., and it certainly helps me do this job. And there is no doubt that energy is a very important issue, and I've learned a long time ago in this job not to try to convince you that your public service bill is low enough. That was a joke, everybody. So it's hard to go anywhere where people think that they're paying too little for public service. But there is no question how important the energy issue is, and this is a great forum for people to have. And I want to raise a couple of very important issues for you because, like Eric said, the importance of delivering energy reliably and also delivering it cleanly is very important. And I'll tell you one thing that's also important is to use as little as possible, because there's something that's going on that we haven't talked about yet that's really fundamental here, and it's called climate change, and it's changing everything. And if you pay attention to the United Nations and you pay attention to the scientists, they're talking about the impact of the changing climate on our lives and how it's going to have a disproportionate impact on lower and moderate income households in America and on the developing world. And it's not to be taken lightly, and you cannot ignore it. And so it's changing everything in the world of energy. Now, everybody in this room should care about energy if you care about light and heat in your home, right? And public service has the job to deliver it reliably. We call it reliably, which means any time of the day or night you need heat or you need to turn the lights on, you are expecting it to be there, and it's our job to deliver it. And with that comes a whole series of responsibilities, none of which I've ever convinced Pastor Bartley can justify how much you're paying on the bill. But I thought it's at least worth mentioning some of the things that are very important. So first off, climate change is not to be ignored. Almost over 80% of the energy we use comes from burning fossil fuels. And we now know that's making our planet warmer, and it's making the storms more serious, it's making water levels rise, and it's not something that we can ignore. So what are we going to do? So guess what? The cheapest energy is burning fossil fuels to generate electricity or to heat your home. 8 out of 10 people in this home, 8 out of 10 people in this room heat their homes using natural gas. It's also true with businesses and schools and government buildings. So what are we going to do about it? As the gentleman I mentioned who spoke first, renewable energy is more expensive than burning fossil fuels. So you have a choice. We all have a choice. I just had twins. Thank you very much. But one of the, wow, I would have started with that if I thought I got an applause for it. But you know what? We want to pass on to our children a healthy planet, and there's nobody in this room who loves their children less than I do, and that's really no joke. So with that comes responsibilities, and climate change cannot be ignored by any of us. And it's very important because the energy policy debate is going on in Trenton, and one of the things I want to walk out of this room with is knowing that Pastor Bartley and Pastor Jefferson are going to walk hands in hand with me to talk to the people in Trenton about paying attention to the needs of inner cities and lower income people as we decide energy policy. None of those facts, no matter how poor you are, means that you should not be able to enjoy the benefits of renewable energy. It is what our planet requires. It's what our communities require. And there's one more thing about burning fossil fuels. I know I haven't. I bet I'm not the only one in this room. Asthma. Who has asthma in this room? Anybody else besides me? I'm not alone, right? And respiratory illness also comes from burning fossil fuels, but it's the cheapest way to deliver electricity to you. So is it cheaper to risk your health in the future, or is it cheaper to spend money to generate electricity cleanly? And so I am not here to defend your public service bill. I've given up on that like 10 years ago. It's hopeless. But there is no question, there is one responsibility everybody in this room has, and that is to use as little energy as possible. And because you're in this room means you're an American. And because you're an American means you're an energy hog. It means that if you lived in Germany or Japan or France, you use half the energy that you're using because you live in America, right? So that's about changing our lives. So does anybody have their grandmothers do what my grandmother did to me? Turn out the lights. You own stock in public service? Anybody hear that one before? Right. Am I the first one? Right? So that's the easiest way to save energy. Turn out the lights when you leave the room. Use only when you need it, but it's not that simple. The biggest energy used in your house, your hot water heater. Well, you can't just turn that out when you leave the room, right? You have to buy a new, more expensive one that is more energy efficient. You have to buy more efficient air conditioners and more efficient refrigerators. More efficient appliances is what it's going to take for everybody to use less energy. And then it's going to take structures which can save energy. So this is a very serious public policy challenge. No matter what you may think of your public service bill, the leaders in this room, and I feel proud, I mentioned this on purpose, I work for Donald Payne. I learned a lot of lessons working for Donald Payne, and I spent a lot of time in the South Ward. I have to admit, I was shocked to see that sign in front of Weequahic High School on the way over here. I'm like, I got to get out more. So it is very important that you all have your voice heard on public policy, because I work with lots of people who don't really care about you. And talking about how expensive your public service bill is not going to save you from any of the problems that are coming. It is talking about how we can help people to save energy. How are we going to make it universally available to use renewable energy? And what are we going to do to respond to climate change? Together. Very serious challenges ahead of us, and very complicated challenges. You don't want to hear a whole bunch of financial analysis and facts from me tonight, but do not let anybody get away without talking to you about these things. And right now, I think it was the first speaker talking about the Energy Master Plan debate is going on in Trenton now. New Jersey has now just signed up to do more offshore wind, and New Jersey is number 2 in the country doing solar. But as was mentioned, those are clean energy sources. They do not produce any pollution. They will not contribute to my asthma, but they are more expensive than burning fossil fuels. So we have to have a balance, right? Nobody's suggesting we just walk away from fossil fuels. Gas is very important, and and if you drive about 3 hours west of here, they've discovered more natural gas than you could burn in a lifetime as a country. So we have access to all the fossil fuels that you could possibly imagine, and that is the least expensive way to generate electricity, except for the fact it creates air pollution, and the greenhouse gases, the carbon dioxide, contribute to global warming. So, you know, as my father used to say to me, the cheapest way is always the most expensive, Rick. Anybody heard that one before? That always goes when you're fixing up your house, right? And frequently your car too. But it also goes here. So don't be fooled by this cheap talk. Unless you don't have kids and you don't care about tomorrow, and raise your hand if you don't have kids or care about tomorrow, right? Then you don't have to worry about it. Burn fossil fuels, get away with the least expensive way, and somebody else will have to deal with the problems. Now, having said that, what we've got to do is work together. We've got to vote, got to make sure we have elected officials who respond. Now, the governor of New Jersey is committed to clean energy goals. He would not be governor without the votes of people in this room and people who look like people in this room. And that's a good thing. So your voice can be heard if you take the trouble to understand the issues and educate yourselves about what's going on. So this is a very, very powerful and a very, very complicated subject. As I now learn, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, we all use energy one way or another. And unless you care about light and heat, well, if you don't care about those things in your home, then you don't have to worry about energy, right? But we have a profound responsibility to deliver it reliably because electricity is becoming increasingly important in people's lives. It's hard to live without electricity. In fact, there's not a politician in America who would say, I don't care what you do, Bartley, you don't get electricity in your house. Well, that's a whole different lifestyle. We're not going to do that to people. It is our responsibility to be your partner, not just the ones who ask you to write a check every month. But I do want to thank you for the monthly support you give to public service, everybody. We do appreciate it. But it's a very serious responsibility to deliver electricity reliably. These storms are serious. Trees knock down power lines, and then you don't have power in your house, and we have got to fix it. These storms are coming more and more, and there's not a person I've met in New Jersey who wants to cut down every tree so their power lines don't get interrupted when there's a storm, right? That's not an option. We don't have easy solutions to these problems. We have choices to make. And because we're grown, you're going to have to live with your choices. And don't forget that. We got to live with our choices. So the most important choice is Pastor Bartley and Pastor Jefferson, is us working together to make the people in Trenton understand that you matter just as much as anybody who lives in Short Hills or Livingston or Bridgewater or Branchburg or the other towns in New Jersey. And that if we're going to treat everybody fairly, that means energy policy needs to take that into account. And it means you, even though you don't have the big roof with open air around it, that you still deserve access to solar energy because that's part of the future. But there is no excuse for any of us not to reduce our energy, our personal energy consumption. You know, we have a couple of programs. You know, since you beat me up, I can at least advertise a couple of programs, right? You know, Comfort Partners. We have a Comfort Partners program that has no cost. If you are 225% or below the federal poverty level for your income, you're eligible for our Comfort Partners program if you sign up to have us come in and do an inspection and see if we can help you reduce your energy consumption. We have another program called Direct Install for nonprofits or for businesses in urban enterprise zones or for public buildings to help reduce energy consumption. Public service is named what it is for a reason, and I'm here for a reason. If you believe we're your partner and you're willing to speak up to say public service is here to help me, we're going to be able to help together change energy policy in New Jersey to make it more responsive to the needs of urban communities, more responsive to the needs of people of color, more responsive to the needs of people who have low and moderate income levels. That is the challenge in front of us. There is nothing we can say or do to change the fact that climate change is going to affect all of our lives, and we have to be responsible people because I want my daughters to grow up in the same world that I grew up in. I don't want it to be 112 degrees in October and have storms that are more serious and more damaging to the home. Nobody wants that. We have a responsibility to pass our planet on to the future generations in a fashion that is responsible. So I know he's looking at me. I know I'm not supposed to keep talking, but this is a very serious topic, and I want you to know that the people at Public Service, believe it or not, we spend a lot of time on this topic. We spend a lot of time making sure that the electric infrastructure in Newark is being upgraded, not only for the more affluent towns. We spend a lot of time making sure that the gas mains are being properly maintained so they don't leak methane gas, which is also a global warming gas, into the air. And now we're spending a lot of time making sure that the clean energy goals include thinking universally. And universally is code talk. I work with a lot of people who could care less about you, right? And if anybody thinks I'm lying, please stop me afterwards. They could care less about your interests unless someone makes them pay attention to it. And so unless we work together, energy policy of the future will not reflect your interests. There is no question we want to keep energy costs as low as possible. But it's not going to be that simple, everybody. We have a very complicated challenge in front of us. And never let anybody talk to you about energy without paying attention to the demands of climate change, because it's going to change all of our lives. And I don't like having asthma. I don't like air pollution. I don't like being short of breath. I don't like it when people don't pay attention to the impact on the people of the things that they do in their businesses. And that's why my job is called corporate citizenship. It's a new thing in my world. Corporations didn't always care about citizenship. And they certainly didn't care about coming to Bergen Street for someone who worked for Donald Payne to help them think about citizenship. This is all brand new. And our challenge is a profound one. I look forward to working together with you. And I will mention these two pastors one more time because, you ain't getting out, or you're not getting out of this without me, right? If we work together, our voice can be heard. But these challenges are very important. And the best I can do is hopefully I've convinced you that I'm trying my best to tell you the truth, and that if we can work together, we have the best chance of influencing energy policy together in the future. And I'm sorry for taking your time. And he's got some nice shoes too, Pastor Bartley. But I will talk to you again. Thank you.
Come on, let's give him another hand. This is so vitally important. We're moving right along, and this is really working out. I want to thank Paul and them for organizing the speakers in the number that they have them, because our next speaker will be that of the Dr. Reverend Evan Jefferson. And I just want to throw this in there because as I'm looking at introducing Pastor Jefferson, he's the senior pastor of the Metropolitan Baptist Church here in the city of Newark, where he has grown the church for a number of years, where they're at a number of 7,000 or more. Prior to that, he was the senior pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where he was co-laboring with me. But one of the things that really stuck out as I listened to Rick, he's also the personal pastor of Senator Cory Booker. And so I wanted to throw that in. Rick just talked about Congressman Donald Payne, and I just want y'all to know I have somebody too. I believe is special. I pastor, and that's Rachel Nordlinger. I am the pastor of Rachel Nordlinger. They want to throw names out. You don't get no better than that there. And so I want to introduce him now. He's going to really give us the economic piece that is so vitally important. And so please put your hands together for the senior pastor and a board member of the National Action Network, along with the New Jersey director for the National Action Network. Let's give Pastor Jefferson another hand.
Good evening, everyone. Listen, the first thing that I want to do is I just need us to take a few minutes and commend Pastor Bartley. I really, come on, I just need everybody to encourage his spirit. Right? Come on. I mean, when you look at the journey, when you think about the journey of NAN tech world, when you kind of consider his ability to partner with people and bring individuals together. And I don't know, how many of you all knew about this facility before it really had all of this done to it? How many people in this community? This entire facility has been what? Completely it has been given new life since Pastor Bartley and his team have done what they have done. And so, we're gathered in this building, but at the end of the day, I just think that we ought to recognize Pastor Bartley as well as, the Consumer Energy Alliance. And I just want those folks to raise their hand too, because this is come on, let's also thank those folks. Come on, let's thank those folks as well, because this is beyond a doubt a very, very important topic, and I'm most appreciative of the dialogue, for the conversation, and hopefully for the exchange. And I just need everybody in here to vote right now. If you are, really with us in having PSEG to extend their grace period. Can you raise your hand? Can I get a vote of the House? Can I get an approval? Can I get an approval that they will extend their grace period, Pastor Bartley? Can I conduct church meeting? All of those in favor, aye. Amen. The ayes have it. You can take that back to your board of directors and tell them we just voted that we're going to extend the grace period for this. And here's the next thing. Let me ask this. How many persons in here are small business owners? How many persons in here are small business owners? Okay. How many persons in here have a household? You're in a household. If you have a household, you're a small business owner. If you have a household, you are a small business owner. Because a small business consists of two things. It consists of revenue and expenses. If you are managing a household, you can't keep it going unless you have two things. You got to have revenues and you have to have expenses. And therefore, you have to take ownership of a budget. You have to be a steward of making sure that you're managing that household as you would manage any business. Because if you don't, your cost or your expenses are going to exceed your revenue. So you have to know where your money is going. So what I need you to do, I need you right now, if anybody in here can tell me to the dollars and cents what your energy and utility bill was for the month of August, we will give you $10 on the spot. Now, before we do that, you're going to have to bring your bill. And Pastor Bartley is going to have to validate it. So the question is, how many individuals in here know exactly what your energy bill was, what your cost was for the month of August to a T? Okay. Who know? Okay. Who know? No rounding. I need like $24.50. I need a $24.51. Well, no, you got to know the exact amount. Who? $94.16. So Pastor Bartley is going to get that $10. You got to know the cents. Come on, Rachel. Huh?
I know the cents, but I know that mine was $4.24, and I think I owed a little from the last month, so it was like $5.
Okay. Out of how many people in here, I had 2, 3 at the most, who really manage their household expense well enough from an economic point of view to say that my energy bill was this and it needs to get down to this in order for me to make sure that I can make ends meet. And a few moments ago, Pastor Bartley kind of talked about how many members we have, but in addition to that, we have a Willing Heart Community Care Center. We feed on a Tuesday today. We feed approximately 325 people every Tuesday. And in addition to that, we give 200 people a full load of grocery to take home. Listen to this. And as we have talked to them, you would be surprised that with the average income being what it is in the city of Newark, you would be surprised at the number of people that have told us that they have to take the money that they would purchase for food and put it on their energy bill. How many of you all have heard that? They have to indeed take that money and put it on the energy bill. So from now on when they come, I'm going to put a name up. Okay? Rick Thigpen. No, not that Rick. I'm teasing. No, not at all. I'm not going to do that. But this is a very, 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 very serious matter, because what people are doing is they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And they're really trying to make it, and in order to make ends meet, they have to try and keep what? The lights on and the heat on, etc. And they have to compromise in order to do that. And so I need you to take out either your cell phone now, or I need you to take out a little piece of paper, because I need to give you some facts. One of my law professors said, hey, in God we trust, but when you write your brief, I need facts and I need data, right? So I want you to I want you to take some notes. I want you to kind of get some facts here, because I do think that it is very important for me to kind of walk through some facts. According to the 2015 survey by the U.S. Energy Information Administration, watch this. Nearly 1/3 of American households struggle to pay their energy bill to the light, heat, cool, and their home. 1/3. What does that mean? 33%. Can I bring that to Newark? If you bring that to Newark, that then would suggest that out of the thousands of households that we have, we are between at least 35 to 40 based upon the average income level that exists in the city of Newark. When you look at the number of people that are living below the poverty level in Newark, when you have an increase in your utility bill or your energy bill, the pain that is causing is absolutely off the radar screen. So when Rick a few moments ago was really saying what he was saying, this is not only a real issue, but this is an issue that we must work together on and really, really address. I see people coming to me all the time. And in our church, for example, we are very discreet in the way we help people. We have an entire budget that is really appropriated for what we call mission and outreach. And guess what most of those people are coming to us to ask for? They're coming to get support and help to keep the lights on. Their kids need to get their homework out. They need to make sure that they have light and heat. And guess what we do? We supplement it. Now, if you need a church home, you can come to 149 Springfield Avenue, and we will give you about $49.50 on an energy bill once you pay your tithe. No, that's a joke, everybody. You know, that's a joke. You know. No, that's. Melvin is one of my trustees. Come on, Melvin is one of my trustees. I meant Calvin. Calvin is one of my trustees. Come on. And Calvin knows we don't really treat people that bad. But here's what I am saying. No. And Calvin knows this. Here's what I am saying though. When you have, quote, energy costs that are going up, you'll be surprised at how it puts pressure on other institutions. Because some institutions has to step up and really address that. So it's not just the house being impacted in the family. It is impacting other institutions in the community that has to step up and take care of that void. And so whether it is a church or whether it's another organization or whether it is, quote, Rick, you all having the plan that you have in place, it puts a strain on the other institutions. And so it is very imperative then that we do what? Address the root cause. Are you all hearing me? That we address the root cause. Here's the second fact. The survey found that roughly 1 in 3 households reported reducing or foregoing basic necessities like food and medicine to pay the energy bill, and 14% reported receiving a disconnect notice for their energy service. Think about that. Think about that. That's what they had to indeed compromise in order to keep the household going. Now, let me just share with you something with respect to New Jersey's industry, because this is very critical. In New Jersey, major industries like manufacturing and transportation rely heavily on natural gas. Rising cost of energy resources drives up prices across the board, hurting consumers and weakening our various industries. I just returned from Martha's Vineyard with about 50 individuals up there, and we were really talking about how do we indeed develop a sustainable economy, and how do we indeed create in the African American community a platform that would allow individuals to really be a part of an expanding economy. Guess what would never happen? We will never ever crack that code if we don't, quote, come up with solutions to address the fundamental basic costs that allows a household to run what I would call a surplus, so that they can put money into an investment that would allow for the longevity of the next generation. And the economy will never be sustainable, and we will never be able to grow if we don't generate surplus revenues in our own communities, so people can put some money in different places to send their kids to school, so that when they get to a certain age, they will be able to do X, Y, Z. And that's why I said a few moments ago, it's not just about energy in that house. It affects so many other things associated with growing the economy and having an inclusionary growth, quote, set of things, Pastor Bartley, where we can therefore have a sustainable community. And how many people in here would really just raise your hand and say, we need a sustainable community where we can create jobs and do some investments in different clubs and invest in real estate and do some things like other communities do? There is no secret that you cross the railroad tracks and the ironbound section look a whole lot different than what we have over here. Come on, y'all. Does that make sense? And it all starts with something like this. Without this kind of dialogue, without this kind of information, and let me just say, you know, for the number of people we have in here, we can turn it upside down. I'm committing to you right now that Pastor Bartley and I, Rick, we're going to be with you. We're going to help support some policies. We're going to help support that. Jesus only had 12 disciples. And today we have Christianity, and look at how it's grown. We don't need 2,000 people in here. We got enough right now that if we get the information and go back and address the people that we already know, guess what we can do with that information? Right? I mean, that's how you multiply it. And so I would encourage you all tonight, as you kind of go back, to really take that information with you. Let me say this last point, and that is New Jersey is heavily dependent on natural gas to fuel those industries, power our homes, and keep our economy strong. And without an affordable alternative, communities of color, community of colors, black and brown communities will suffer greatly. So before I close, I just want to know who we have to give the money to. Pastor Bartley will have $5 coming to him. Rachel will have $5 coming to her. Anybody else in here I need to pay who know to the penny what your energy bill was, what your utility bill was? Well, okay, all right. Thank you. I'm done.
Let's give Pastor Jefferson another hand. That was some great information, and we needed to hear that. I have solar panels on my roof, and it's so tricky how that even works. You know, it's so tricky. You know, they make it seem like you get free solar panels, you know, and then you have to go credit check, and you have to make sure that your credit is good first. And yep, got to have the roof ready. Roof definitely has to be in good condition. And then they forget to tell you that don't lease it, but if you're going to do anything with it, buy it. And if you do buy it, you're going to have to service it on your own. And so they make it so tricky. Oh, it's something, and it's just amazing because I know Calvin know a little bit about this because he lived down my way, and you see him all over. You see him everywhere, and I'll be looking at the bill to see how much I've saved. And because I didn't realize I should have owned it first, so that means that they're making money off my solar panels on my roof. So Rick, I'm with Jefferson. I got the governor's number. When you want to start? And I know that Reverend Sharpton and the National Action Network would be very involved with this because this is so vitally important, and we're the ones that are losing out. You know, I know none of y'all want to be honest, but I remember those days when the lights was out in my house, and you knew when you lived in the projects, you knew who had lights was out because you see the extension cord running all down the hallway to somebody else's house. And so we need to make sure that we are involved with this because this is so vitally important. They're just not here just to talk. This is concerning you, your welfare, and your next generation. You know, that way we can put something aside for grandson, granddaughter, education, things of that nature. My daughter just went to Clark, Atlanta, and I wanted to make sure only thing she worried about was her books and studying. And so by the grace of God, my family were able to put a little something aside before, so that when she goes there, she won't have to worry about money, because PSEG and we have another one out our way. What's the other one called? Jersey? JCP&M. Right. So they get us both ways. And soon as a storm comes, the lights go out, everything shut down. And most of the homeowners where I live, we all have generators. Rachel, we live off generators where I live. And so this is vitally important. Our next speaker, and we're almost done, just want you to bear with us, is also a colleague of ours. He wears multi-hats. He's known for his wannabe cooking. But every event I have him here, Calvin. He's at every one of my events. He's the caterer for all of our events. And that is none other than Chef Ameer, who's also Pastor Ameer Natson, that pastors the Better Life Church in the city of Newark. He is a faith leader. He's also one that does many caterings for many celebrities, athletes, professional athletes. I wish I could tell you some of the names, but it's the confidentiality, but you would be impressed with the people that he cooked for. And he's going to come now and talk about it as a small businessman, what his experiences are and how important this is for him and how things can be better if we all come together. Let's give Pastor Ameer Natson, the senior pastor, Better Life, a.k.a. or also Chef Ameer. Let's give him a hand.
If you've ever been the younger of a group of siblings, you'll understand my gripe with these great giants and community leaders. Thank you, Pastor Bartley. They certainly don't make it easy for me. And I guess that's the way it should be, right? It's all good. So I'm honored to stand on this panel tonight with these great leaders and executives of PSEG and, of course, everyone in the room, just to speak from my perspective and my passion as it relates specifically to the rising energy costs, not just in the state of New Jersey, but around the country. As a celebrity chef who has earned his stripes, amen. Nobody gave it to me. I had to earn it, I promise. And so I've been blessed, of course, through God's help and through faith to cook for some phenomenal people, former personal chef to Beyonce and Jay-Z. I've cooked for Queen Latifah, cooked for the New York Giants. I have, amen, they didn't do good the other night, but I just cook. I focus on the bag. That's our language. And so I've owned several restaurants, and I also work as a restaurant consultant, helping entrepreneurs that specifically work in the food service or food industry with sustaining or redeveloping or rebranding their food businesses. And 6 out of 10 restaurants that I go in to help as a consultant are struggling or on the verge of failing because of the cost of energy in trying to run a restaurant. There's the cost of staff. Of course, there's the cost if you don't own the building, which most small restaurant owners or entrepreneurs don't. Of course, the overhead of monthly expenses like rent. But more often than not, when I sit down with business owners, their gripe is that their public service, electric and gas bill is as much as the rent that they pay to keep their restaurant afloat. And so I have had my fair share of run-ins where I have not been at my restaurant, and they called and said, Chef, there's a gentleman here with an orange vest on, and he said you need to get here right now with some money. There's customers in here eating, food's coming out. And so I speak from the perspective or position of how important it is, as Phil Thigpen has said, to really work on legislation that will control the rising cost of energy, specifically in the state of New Jersey. I also wanted to talk, I've got a few points that I want to share. Dr. Jefferson shared, and that was very powerful, that facts are everything. And so I had a few facts that I wanted to share with you that you can take away just for your own personal education. And so that is that studies show that natural gas pipelines could save millions for our homes and small businesses. One fact is that New Jersey's businesses and industries could have saved $399 million last winter. That gas customers could have saved $151 million last winter, and that natural gas and oil production in New Jersey helped save families and businesses almost $21 billion. And so I did a decent amount of research on what pipelines are and what natural gas is and how important it is. And so another point that I have here is access to affordable energy is a basic human right, right? I thought about it earlier today. We were in the kitchen preparing, in fact, the dinner that we're having tonight. And having access to not just affordable energy, but having access to energy, period, is not the same as a cable service, right? You can live without cable. You can live without your cell phone. You can live without groceries from Whole Foods because you can shop at the farmer's market, right? But when you don't have access to energy, and our speaker spoke and shared facts about, Pastor Jefferson very strongly from an economic standpoint talked about managing our resources, and I have to admit that I have no clue what my energy bill was because I'm a millennial and we just make money and spend money. Pastor Bartley says to me very often, put a little something up. And I just call PSEG and put it on auto pay, right? But budgeting is so important. And as a faith leader in the city of Newark, who leads and pastors a population of people that are probably much like me, some that may be on the struggling side of the spectrum, right? We don't necessarily budget well. And it's just something that we have not been educated about. And so, from a small business perspective, when you've got to worry about buying chicken and paying a cook and paying a chef and paying a dishwasher and a delivery person and someone to clean the stoves and the overhead hoods at the end of the night, budgeting is not at the top of lists of things to do. We just want to be able to have it, to expend it when the time comes. So I'm just very passionate about this subject tonight. and personally invited a ton of people who I thought also would benefit from this conversation, and how important it is that we educate my generation and those coming up after me on how important it is to budget and to be serious about our energy costs. I probably have 4 lights on in the house right now, and the AC is probably just running, right? And that's just because Grandma ain't in the house with me. But as Pastor Bartley would say, I'll learn. So I don't want to take up too much time, and thank you all for hearing me out as I share tonight. Just please pay very close attention to all the information that has been shared. So one more, and then we have a few Q&A. Just a few more. Just give us a few more moments. I'm going to let you go. Last but not least, I am so honored to have the privilege to introduce our next speaker. He is William D. Jones. He is the Treasurer and Executive Director of the Elizabeth Public Housing Authority there in the city of Elizabeth. He is a brilliant man, one that I look up to personally, that I get a lot of educational advice from him regarding my finances and other things. He's kind of like someone that I really can talk to regarding issues that we're going to be discussing tonight. Mr. Jones is also the Vice Chairman of the Newark Tech World here. He is the Vice Chairman here in Newark, and he is an outstanding individual. His relationship was also in Irvington, where he worked with Irvington Housing Authority Councilwoman East Orange as well, and he wears several hats. And so I'm so honored that he's here tonight, that he would come and share with us. Please put your hands together for William D. Jones, Executive Director of Elizabeth Housing Authority.
Pastor, thank you very much. I called him this week. We were talking about whatever, and he asked me a couple of questions about how the residents at public housing, how do they manage to pay their bill? And I gave him a little bit of insight, and he said, hey, you got to come over here Tuesday. I don't care what you're doing. You got to show up. That's the way he rolls. You got to come up Tuesday and tell me, you know, how it goes. But some of the Mr. Thigpen, now PSEG, because we're not going to really bash them. Now here's why. I think in the state of New Jersey at least, they are the best provider of our services. I did have, unfortunately, a small gas leak in my house the other day. I called them up and they were there within a half an hour. When we have a storm, they get the lights back on as soon as possible. So I think we have a great service provider in spite of the raising costs that we can be proud of. I really do. Reverend Jefferson talked about family budgeting. Now, you know, I'm blessed, so when the PSEG bill comes to the house, I open it up, maybe set it down for a couple of days, write the daggone check. I don't think about it again. You know, I yell and scream at my daughter because she runs the air conditioner like it doesn't mean anything. But in terms of public housing, you know, we looked at, when he asked me to come, I looked at, because I had, you know, you run at the authority and you kind of forget about it. But the money, unfortunately, that the residents make and what they have to spend, we pay for the heat, but they got to spend for electric. So let's say a tenant is on welfare. She got 2 kids. She may get $422 a month. Her food stamps have been cut drastically. You know, we're providing a subsidy for the housing, so if she has to pay $33 or $31 for electricity, and we're talking about maybe rising it or having it go up, it gets to be untenable for them. And you know, the residents, they live well, they do what they can do, they take care of their kids, they love their kids, they send them to school. But you know, money is an issue. And in this country, for us, you know, it's not getting any better. I looked at some figures today. The poverty rate in Camden is 35%. I mean, in PSEG, it's 31. In Newark, it's 27. And it goes on and on and on. So we just got to be cognizant of the fact that if you take it for granted that you can pay the PSEG bill, that doesn't mean that it's easy for everybody to pay it. And, I know everybody's working towards renewable energy sources and making things better, but that's up to us, because we're not going to get the help from Washington the way it exists today. So we got to do everything possible. It's just not about a few people. It's about everybody. And that's the way my mom raised us. That's the way Reverend Jefferson looks at it. Pastor Bartley looks at it. This is a big problem. And it's not just about paying the energy bill. It's how you feed your family, how you put some clothes on the kids so they can go to the back. How do you maintain a household where your kids have a positive image when there's not a lot of money? And that's something we face all today. So I'm glad to be here. If I didn't come, Steffi Bartley he'd want to beat me up and put a golf club over my head, but that's not a problem. But energy crisis, we talked about the climate control. It's a serious issue, and we all got to work together, to keep it at least not getting out of control any more than it is. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Reverend.
That was the shortest speech I've ever heard him give. So real quickly, we have a few questions. I'm sure there's a few questions. But I just want to also thank PSEG and Rick. And I don't know why I was calling Melvin. I don't know why I was there tonight, Cal. I've been there. I've been there where I've had PSEG at our facility, and Rick and Calvin has come to our rescue a numbers of times. And one of the sad parts about some of it is when they're at the church, and you have one of the church members let them in, and they won't know what. So, oh, that mercy. That's some serious stuff. All right, got question. Real quick question. Yes.
Okay. My question is, first one, because he's about to leave.
State your name.
My name is
Stand up. State your
My name is Felicia Simmons. I'm the president of the Monmouth Ocean County chapter of National Action Network. And I'm a social activist by poor profession every day. And every day I do CAP programs and other things. So I have multiple questions, but this one because I see he's about to leave. Inside of JPC, and now that's where I'm from in Monmouth County, I come to find right after that grace period they talked about, inside there is no organism or structure to help with the bills inside of the collector. Okay, so can you form a organization inside that can actually help someone who owes maybe $1,500, $1,600 to help with the energy crisis and uprising for the low income?
Yes. Calvin?
Because they say inside of the state, inside of the electric company, they cannot fix. It's a fixed rate. They can't go in and say, well, maybe I only have 9, but they owe 12.
So I can't speak to Jersey Central Power and Light and what their structure is and how they operate. But I could tell you in PSEG's territory, there's an organization called Payment Assistance Outreach that does just that.
Okay, I know the CAP program, but we'll talk.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll do that. All right. Question?
Yes. Hi, Sylvia Coleman, President, Chapter, Leader of Central Jersey, National Action Network. Question. If we are expanding national natural gas pipelines, would that be mainly or largely in the Newark area, or would that be somewhere else? If they're going to, yes, I asked that question. No problem. If you guys are going to expand the natural gas pipelines, would that be largely in the Newark area or somewhere else?
So once again, the gentleman behind me could answer better. So we are upgrading the natural gas pipelines inside the city to deliver gas to your homes, right? That's one type of pipeline. We are not in the business of expanding the natural gas pipelines that come from the frack the gas or from the Gulf of Mexico to bring up here, so separate. So we're not trying to expand the gas network. We're trying to make the gas delivered to your homes to heat them more efficient and safer so they don't leak natural gas into the atmosphere. Fair enough? Okay.
And other workers be able to participate. You have a hiring program so they can be the young people for, a specific program maybe throughout, tech world.
First off, I want y'all to see the smile on her face when she asked that question. So the answer is yes, to some degree. There are most of those jobs, and again, the young man sitting here can answer better than me, most of those jobs are from union. Union jobs require technical training, certification, safety, etc. But to the extent possible, one of the programs we have at Public Service is to try to involve local people in some of our construction work. And we could be more specific if you want, but the answer is yes to your question. But that also involves to be really effective at it, partnerships with labor unions, not just the will of the company. But
Hi, my name's Mike Butler. I'm with Consumer Energy. Dane is a colleague of mine. Two questions, one on pipelines and related jobs. There are opportunities for potential larger pipelines that bring some from Pittsburgh, so I appreciate the gentleman wearing the Steeler hat and welcome me here, even after a tough Sunday. But so pipelines that are coming from where I'm from, there are projects that could potentially be coming into New Jersey, and that is what gets to the opportunity to lower some of these costs. The cost savings that New Jersey has seen to date is largely because of the natural gas that comes from Pennsylvania and the Marcellus Shale, and there are potential projects that would bring more of that gas in and help lower more costs if we're able to do that. Some of those projects have been blocked by, in New Jersey, Governor Murphy, and New York, Governor Cuomo, so those are all to be determined, which is why it's so important that so many of you would be willing to come out here and talk about these issues. As it relates to jobs, that's one of the most exciting opportunities around pipelines or energy in general is folks come out of high school, go to a labor trade organized labor building trade, the operating engineers, the seam fitters, LIUNA, not have to take any, get paid to be an apprentice and come out of those programs in 2 or 3 years and make $60,000, $80,000, $90,000. Some people in Pittsburgh right out of these apprentice programs, operating engineers making over $100,000 a year, 24, 25 years old, no college debt. But that's throughout the energy industry. So there's solar installation jobs are growing, other refinery jobs growing. I mean, it's just really this incredible energy revolution that's happening. And again, what's going to come out of the Energy Master Plan may or may not either help or hurt that. And that's what we're all trying to pay attention to see what these opportunities could be or what could be thwarted if people don't take action, take notice, and be involved in this decision-making process. Thanks for the questions. Are there additional questions?
Thank you for this forum. I know, I apologize, I'm not standing, but I wanted to ask a question. What is the difference between fracking and the natural resources? Can you tell me what the difference is between fracking and the natural resources? And then my second question is there any resources, since we're talking about millennials, is there any resources that we can give to the millennials to help out the next generation?
Answer that, Mike.
That's a great question. Thank you for it. So when we talk about fracking, that is a natural resource. That's natural gas. Like coal, any of the fossil fuels, natural gas, those are natural. So they just say that because it's a natural thing found in the earth. That's why they're referred to as natural resources. Renewables are also can be natural, right? I mean, sunlight is natural, wind is natural. So that can encompass, when someone says natural resources, that can encompass potentially everything. So when someone says renewables, that's usually someone talking about solar or wind. If they talk about fossil fuels or natural resources, then they're usually talking about natural gas or coal. Nuclear is also in many ways a renewable energy source that is generated that way. So it really depends on the the conversation that people are having. They sometimes use the words interchangeably. And then what was your second question?
My second question was, is there any material that is given? I'm not sure if it's like on the PSEG website or the other
Well, that's another excellent question. I mean, one resource, our website, the Consumer Energy Alliance, if you would go on that website, you'd find a lot of this information that explains some of these issues. Also has some great tips on the summer, how to keep your energy bills down, or in the winter, how to keep your heating bills down. But you're right, the schools ought to do a better job of bringing these issues together so people have a better understanding of the choices that are in front of them. Because a lot of people don't know, or they know just a very little, and it may be slanted toward one perspective or another, and it doesn't necessarily do a great job of showing how all of these issues are interconnected. I mean, as the panel did an excellent job of, your energy policy ends up affecting your household policy, it affects your food policy, and we don't do a very good job explaining to everyone how those things all are interrelated.
Dane, I want to also
sure.
Comment on that as well.
Thank you, Pastor. So one thing I wanted to say, and it's something that's not really well known in a lot of communities, is that the utility space itself now is expanding. So even jobs in tech, it's in high demand in the utility space, because with all the smart technologies that are coming in, right, they're in high demand. So even, when you think you need data analysts, data scientists, you need, people to work and operate the grid and learn from the guys that were there before, and also teach them the newer ways in. So as far as resources for millennials, it's one thing to do if there's anyone here that's into tech or science or anything like that, or if you know of anyone, let them know that, hey, you can go work for a utility, with all the solar and the wind and all that stuff that's coming in, and pipelines and stuff like that. We need people for that.
And I'm going to get them right here. Also, I just want to make this comment. That's why it's so important that we work on expungements, because we have several family members who are trying to get jobs with PSEG and other places, but because of their background, certain crimes that they've committed permits them from going to those areas. And we're so thankful that that's also what Tech World is about, that we're here no matter what.